I want to talk about a bunch of little ideas that are kind of related to each other, but they look very different. I was in the legal studies course, and we were going over all these material that the lawyers have to resort to study cases or case law, and I was also listening to a bunch of audios that I made, and all the books they were talking about the material that's in a print form, and you go into the library and you look at different cases or shepherdize it, but then in reality everything is on different expert systems, like on Westlaw or LexisNexis, or there are a lot of the legal studies, like research or writing. They are also in digital form, like books that are just free. Well, I get a lot of the books off of Google itself. I just, for example, if I wanted to study tort law, I just put tortlaw.pdf and I get a bunch of books. And so what's actually is happening is because the information technologies are becoming mature, then things, research or work that was like legal research or attorneys' work, they're becoming extremely simplified, because on the back end you don't need secretaries and all these people to prepare and organize the information in a way that you could readily use it. For example, take it to the court and argue the case, something like that. So this just shows the trend with the expert systems, that they are replacing or kind of augmenting what was a lot of back-end offices in many kinds of different companies. And I was listening to Peter Schiff, and he was talking about the Lyft. That's a company that they have an app, and you can order, like Uber. You can order a driver, and they'll come and help you. But he was saying that the company wasn't doing that great. They came out with an IPO, and the IPO kind of floundered. Maybe it was the market, but then it comes to some other conclusion, is that, hey, there is an expert system or app that you could use to order and pay for a service, and the driver on the other end, he also trusts this system, and he knows that he's going to get paid. And there is this whole thing used to be the administrative or call center for taxi company. I used to work for taxi companies, and they all had like 2 or 3 main offices where local people call and they arrange for the time of pickup. And this was all done by a series of clerks and employees. But now the whole thing has shifted and has become an app, and is being handled by servers or expert systems or programs. And the fact that there is another one, this Lyft, and I was also myself thinking, hey, maybe I could make an app or hire a programmer to make me an app so that I could work in one city like Laguna Beach and get calls and provide car service, something like that. but this is very possible. I don't need to go hire a whole taxi company or a whole bunch of agents to arrange this information, this pickup, this payment processing. Something else came in, some programming came in and replaced all that back-end office. And that was really interesting. Then I was also listening to, because I follow what is happening to IOTA, is a crypto coin, and I bought a bunch of them like a year or two, and the price of the IOTA went up to like I think $1 or something, and then it crashed. It came down to like 30 something cents, 35 cents, 31 cents. Then I was looking at the YouTube. I saw there is all these videos that the company that made IOTA or the programmers, they were hooking it up with other payment platforms, because IOTA can be used to pay for services from machine to machine, or it has found uses in different payment systems that are not traditional. So the programmers were saying, hey, this IOTA, it could become like Bitcoin. I don't know if it will become, but they were also mentioning that like qubit. But then it just shows that like an expert system or a form of money that's the product of decentralized system or app, it has a life of its own. It's like IBM. It's like as if you're discussing the stock of IBM. That hey, the stock came in and did this and that. But in the past, they would talk about the CEO. Hey, CEO is such a charismatic leader, and he knows these banks, and we expect the stock to go up. But then it's kind of like a same kind of story, but a different scenario, as if this crypto coin has acquired a life and personality of its own, and is going around doing this and that, like qubit. But then this brings out another discussion that there could be other apps like Lyft, that they become IPO, but that's not really a company. There's not really a collection of individuals. What it is, Lyft is, or Uber is, because they're too big. But then there could be other apps or other crypto coins like Qubit that are entirely decentralized, entirely based on programs in some decentralized servers, and they acquire a dividend, and they acquire a share price or valuation that's entirely dependent on these decentralized programs. This is very interesting. Also, I think that there is another author. She talks about this. Her name is Catherine Austin Fitz. That there is a lot of technologies that are kind of being tucked away in labs or secret government programs or doors, and if these technologies, like expert systems that we have now, if they came in and they hit the market, and you don't know what the explosion of income or resources will come out of them. Well, I think that some are out, like 3D printing, and I think that 3D printing, it will replace many industries. Like in the past, I worked for industrial companies. For example, I worked for a company that made treadmills, and I was a machinist. And when you want to make a treadmill, it doesn't just pop out of some expert system. You have to make the parts, and the parts are usually metal. You have to form the metal. So there was a machine that bent and shaped metal rods. I would. There was another machine, a cutting machine. I cut the rods into pieces, and then I did deburring, which means like take the sharp parts of uh, the metal parts and kind of deburr them with the sander or with other devices, and then there's like a whole set of machinery, milling and forming and punching. I worked on punching machine, big punching machines that you put in a whole roll or a whole plate of metal or aluminum, and the machine comes down and hits them very hard and makes all these little pieces, and you collect them and deburr them. So in those industries in the past that we are so nostalgic about bringing those industries back, they were very convoluted and difficult, and also very polluting. When I was working as a machinist, a lot of the concern was that these machines won't injure. In fact, on many machines, there were all kinds of guards and all kinds of precautions, all kinds of gloves and training, so that the machine will not do anything that you didn't expect. Well, as things evolved, like I worked for 3M, there were machines that they're CNC, but they were automatic CNC. You would put a chunk of metal, and then the CNC do a million things to this metal, and on the other side, a part that really didn't look anything like the piece of metal you put in, it would come out. And well, those machines, they're really not just a machine. It was like a very complex computer. Well, then I think things evolved, and I was listening to some 3D printing videos, and they have come up with 3D printers that make metal parts by accelerating bits of metal and hitting them against like a flat target area, and constructing like a car part. And then another video was saying that the Chinese have factories that they're using these 3D printers to make car parts, or very complex parts, or parts that belong to cars that we don't make them anymore. There is no such company or third party that makes cars that were made in like 1950s and 1940s. So these technologies, which are kind of mature now, they replace a whole host of industries. And then what I'm saying is that if at some point we really want to reindustrialize, we will have to go after these technologies, 3D technology, and technologies that are like nanotechnology. They will not be, the factory will not be like what I was used to. Like I would go to 3M, and there's all these machines doing the factory. When in the future, when you go in, it probably like a small building, have 2 or 3 very specialized machinery that pops out gadgets, like every 20 minutes, a whole car pops out. There were like 2, 3 machines that make all the body parts, 1 or 2 that make the engine, and then a couple of guys that put it back together, something like that. Well, these ideas look very strange at the moment, but this can happen. And Also, the wealth is like some economists, they see wealth as creation of these products or the production, but this wealth creation could be very strange, could be something that an old economist is never used to looking at this, that hey, this is wealth, but I'm not used to measuring this wealth, or I don't have the metrics that measure this kind of wealth. Well, another thing that was very interesting, and I talked about this in another video called "When the Gatekeepers Died," when it's possible to do business going beyond borders, going beyond the borders of the United States, going beyond the borders of China or Cuba, when these gates and barriers that were created in the 50s or 40s because of political hostility, or their cultural barriers, or whatever, when they can be easily surpassed with technological innovations. For example, I could think of one right this minute, is that, say for example, I made a 3D image or product. I'm able to send this file, which is usually a file, to a 3D printing company elsewhere. Could be in China, could be in Vietnam. I have them printed for me and ship it back to me. Well, this whole process looks like factory produced this device or this gadget very cheaply and very well made, but there is no building, no factory here, no employees coming in and doing this and that. What I'm saying is that there is a lot of wealth that's coming out of the closet, but our economics or our society is kind of puzzling how to measure it, or they might feel poor, but that's not correct. I think that Miss Austin Fisk put it much better than me, is that there is a lot of wealth that's going to come out of these labs and is going to hit the markets. Then I was listening to Kaiser report, and I think he's turning coat and becoming socialist, but was saying that there is a lot of wealth that was generated before from all these technological innovations, or all these companies that started in, and the Wall Street got all this wealth, and then the society didn't get any part of it. Or he was also talking about Gilets jaunes, and that the French are very pissed that their government or their central bank printed all this money and then gave it to their own buddies or friends. So the fact that many economic systems in the West are not collapsing is because this wealth that we have difficulty measuring is generated. Well, if they had printed all this money, there was nothing to represent this money, or there was no real wealth, then there would be automatic hyperinflation like it happens in many countries. But because this wealth is seeping in, the stupid policies of the central bank are not showing up as what it is, economic complete disaster, because there is two curves going up. One is deflation and one is inflation, and they are meeting at some point. And I don't know. I think the new wealth is mitigating the stupidity of the financial markets. But he was also saying that it would be good if some of this wealth showed up as basic income, or I think Stacey Herbert, she was saying that there is some economists that will say that if there was a basic income or the socialism really, then everybody would get a piece of the pie, and then this money that's in the hand of Joe Bag of Donut, it would be really spent in the economy, but because the middle class or lower middle class, they do spend, they don't hoard it, or they don't pile it up. Some of these ideas are very strange. It's because you're really looking at a very complex system, and you really need to be a mathematician and model these systems. And the many theories or ideas that right-wing philosophers have, they really don't work. I hear a lot of stuff that in the condemnation of socialism, that it's such an evil thing, like all this money will come in and we will have hyperinflation, and capitalism is so much better that you will with socialism will end up with the money that will collapse. And well, it hasn't all these years, and we have enriched the corporations and the wealthy. It hasn't done us any good. So it would be better to look at some of these ideas and some of these forms of distributing the money. What if I was somebody who was going to look for money for cities or for counties or for states or for the federal government to pay for all these goodies, I would go after the Wall Street derivative market, which means that zillions of dollars trade hand and derivatives that represent all this wealth that's being shifted around, and tax them a little bit. Tax them, I don't know. Well, in the Kaiser report they were saying let's tax the Wall Street 1% and give it to Social Security, but I would like tax the derivative market, the bond market, not just 1%, maybe like several percents, and it would be like somebody wants to gamble, but then hey, the casino, they need to pay their employees, and or it could be a high roller sitting on a poker table and change $1 million or $2 million on the table is shifted around, but then the company, they're now very shy about collecting their vigorish, and they will cut little pieces of your winnings or your losings, and that's how these beautiful buildings or these these nice casinos are built, by the money of the losers and some of the money of the winners. So also that there is a very destructive trend in American culture. People don't see it because they weren't raised in other cultures. They are not Iranian. If you have Iranian blood and you go to Iran, you know, when you enter, you know that there is a political entity that is in charge, is going to tax you. You cannot do anything that you want. The capitalism that's there, it's subservient to our culture, our society. This goes ditto with Chinese and the Russian. The capitalists or the banks, they can't just do whatever the fuck they want. they are taxed, and they are subject to harsh regulations. And the ones that break the law, they know they have broken the law, and they also know what the punishment is going to be. But also it shows political sovereignty, that the people, and this usually works well in smaller countries, they know that, hey, we own these things, we own this commercial process, we own this airport. Somebody from Washington D.C. doesn't come and say, hey, you have to do this and that. No. What this can happen in the United States, when the bourgeoisie make very serious mistakes, they bring on the crisis hoping for a huge reward, and things backlash. People wake up and really get pissed, and then take over this process, and we'll see taxation in many areas that were formerly, left alone. I would tax Wall Street. I will not be shy about it. Maybe 5% or 7% on transactions that are just like gambling, or buying and selling, or trading stocks or derivatives, or any transaction, even buying precious metals. I would tax them. And also I would make sure that the money ends up not in a foreign war, but in our economy. Some countries like Germany, the people, they expect from the government that dividend, that 1 month of vacation, something like that, because they are in charge of their politics. They own the political process and the economies that are there. Well, thank you very much for being in my YouTube channel. Please subscribe and leave your comment.